Commander Maya Rodriguez stood at the helm of the Earth vessel Horizon Dawn, her dark eyes fixed on the massive alien station looming before them. The Galactic Assembly's headquarters was a marvel of engineering, its crystalline spires stretching out like frozen lightning against the backdrop of space. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally made contact with advanced civilizations. But first impressions weren't going quite as planned. "They're scanning us again," Lieutenant Kai Potel reported from his station, fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Seventh time in the last hour." Maya nodded, maintaining her composure despite the growing tension. The initial greeting from the Galactic Assembly had been promising, until that atmospheric sensors had kicked in. Now their ship had been held in a holding pattern for 12 hours, while various alien vessels conducted repeated scans. "Commander," the ship's AIA chimed in. "I'm detecting increased energy signatures from the station. They appear to be activating some form of containment field." Before Maya could respond, a transmission cut through their communications. The holographic display showed a tall, crystalline being, an Arxian, according to their first contact briefings. Its translucent form pulsed with internal light as it spoke. "Earth vessel," the translator rendered its harmonic tones into English. "Your ship's atmosphere has been classified as a Class 1 biohazard. Your nitrogen-oxygen mixture is highly toxic to 94.3% of known spacefaring species. Please maintain position while we establish proper quarantine protocols." Maya exchanged glances with Dr. Sarah Bennett, their chief xenobiologist. "Toxic," Sarah whispered, her scientific curiosity already piqued. "Our atmosphere is toxic to them." The Arxian continued, "We are perplexed. Our records indicate no spacefaring species has ever evolved in such a caustic environment. The presence of free oxygen in such concentrations should have prevented advanced life from developing." Maya stepped forward, her voice steady. "With respect, our atmosphere isn't just survivable, it's essential to our biology. We literally breathe oxygen to live." The translation caused visible disturbance among the alien council members visible in the background. Several beings that appeared to be made of living smoke rapidly dispersed to the edges of the chamber. "Impossible," a new voice cut in. A massive being covered in iridescent scales moved into view. A Vrel, their database suggested. No complex organism could survive direct oxygen exposure. The molecular damage alone. "If I may," Dr. Bennett stepped forward. "We don't just survive it. We've evolved to harness oxygen's reactive properties. Our cells use it to generate energy. It's fundamental to our existence." The silence that followed was deafening. Maya could almost see the implications rippling through the alien council. Humanity wasn't just capable of surviving in what they considered a toxic environment. They had weaponized it, built their entire biology around it. "This complicates matters," the Arxian finally said. "You understand we cannot allow your vessel to dock without extensive modifications. The risk of atmospheric contamination." "We anticipated some biological differences," Maya replied, activating a holographic display of their own. "Our engineering team has designed an atmospheric containment system. We can maintain a sealed environment while still allowing for diplomatic interaction." The aliens conferred among themselves, their movements betraying what Maya read as anxiety. Finally, the Arxian turned back to them. "Your proposal will be considered. In the meantime, maintain your position and make no attempts to approach the station. Any breach of your atmospheric containment would be catastrophic." As the transmission ended, Maya turned to her crew. "Well," she said with a slight smile, "not exactly the warm welcome we hoped for." "Are we really that dangerous to them?" Kai asked, still staring at his readings. Dr. Bennett was already deep in her data tablets. "Think about it. Oxygen is highly reactive. To species that didn't evolve with it, free oxygen would be incredibly destructive to their cellular structures. We're essentially walking around with what they consider weapons-grade oxidizer in our lungs." Maya gazed out at the glittering station. Humanity had dreamed of finding their place among the stars. They just never expected that place would be as the galaxy's most toxic species. "Send a message to Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them first contact has been established, but we might need to rethink our diplomatic approach. And get me everything we have on atmospheric containment technology. If we're going to be the galaxy's walking biohazard, we'd better make sure we can prove we can handle it responsibly." The crew set to work, while beyond their viewports, the alien station buzzed with activity. Humanity's introduction to the galactic community wasn't going as planned, but Maya had a feeling this was just the beginning of a much larger story. 2 weeks into their quarantine status at the Galactic Assembly Station, the crew of the Horizon Dawn had gotten used to being treated like a wandering biohazard. Dr. Sarah Bennett found herself working in a specially constructed laboratory, separated from her alien counterparts by 3 layers of atmospheric shielding. "Fascinating," she muttered, watching through the barrier as a drop of her blood caused an immediate reaction in the alien testing medium. The Vrel scientist on the other side, Dr. Nexa, recoiled slightly despite the protection between them. "Your hemoglobin molecules are essentially oxygen transport vehicles." Nexa's translated voice came through the comm. "Your entire circulatory system is a delivery network for what we consider a deadly toxin." Sarah couldn't help but smile. Yet that same system might be the key to solving your radiation crisis. The discovery had come 3 days ago. While studying human biology, the alien scientists had noticed something remarkable. Human blood, specifically the oxygen-carrying hemoglobin, showed unusual properties when exposed to the deadly radiation that plagued many of their deep space operations. Commander Rodriguez entered the lab, nodding to both scientists. "Dr. Bennett, the Assembly Council is requesting an update on your findings." Perfect timing. Sarah brought up a holographic display. "Commander, we've confirmed it. The oxygen-binding properties of human hemoglobin can be modified to create a radiation-absorbing shield. It's more effective than any current technology Assembly uses." Maya's eyes widened slightly. "You're saying our toxic blood could be the key to safer space travel?" "Not just space travel," Nexa interjected, their scales shifting colors in what they'd learned indicated excitement. "Think of the applications in reactor shielding, medical treatment, planetary colonization." A new voice joined the conversation. "Assuming we can trust humans with such influence." A Zephyrian delegate, their gaseous form swirling with apparent agitation, had entered the observation area. Maya stepped forward, her posture straight but non-threatening. "With respect, Delegate, we've demonstrated nothing but transparency and cooperation since our arrival. Yes, our biology is dangerous to your people, but we've maintained strict containment protocols." "And what happens when more human ships arrive?" the Zephyrian challenged. "When human colonies spread. One breach, one mistake. Could be said of any technology," Maya countered. "Every spacefaring race has the potential to cause harm. The difference is choosing not to." The lab fell silent. Sarah watched the exchange, noting how the Zephyrians' gaseous forms slowly stabilized, a sign they were considering the argument. Nexa broke the tension. "Perhaps a demonstration is in order. The Radiation Shielding Project provides an opportunity to show how human biology can benefit the Assembly." Maya seized the opening. "We could establish joint research protocols, your containment technology, our biological adaptations, working together instead of staying separated by fear." The Zephyrian's form rippled thoughtfully. "I will bring this proposal to the Council, but be warned, any sign of containment failure, any risk to Assembly species." "Won't happen," Maya assured them. "Humanity understands the responsibility we carry. Let us prove it." After the delegates left, Sarah turned to her commander. "Think they'll agree?" "They have to," Maya replied, watching through the lab windows as ships from dozens of species navigated around the station, all carefully avoiding the quarantine zone around the Horizon Dawn. "We can't stay in isolation forever. Better to make our perceived threat into an asset." Commander AORA interrupted. "I'm detecting increased communication activity from the station." The council appears to be convening an emergency session. Maya straightened her uniform. Well, Doctor, looks like we'll find out soon enough. Prepare your research data. If we're getting a chance to prove ourselves, we need to make it count. As Sarah gathered her findings, she glanced at the blood sample, still causing reactions in the alien medium. Who would have thought that humanity's first major contribution to galactic society would come from the very thing that made others fear them? Perhaps being toxic wasn't such a curse after all. The next few hours would determine whether humanity remained quarantined outcasts or became valuable, if dangerous, allies to the galactic community. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Their greatest liability might just become their greatest diplomatic asset. The emergency council session stretched into its fourth hour. Commander Rodriguez stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Assembly, her voice steady as she concluded the presentation. As Dr. Bennett's research demonstrates, modified human hemoglobin could improve your radiation shielding efficiency by 300%. We're not asking for unrestricted access, just the opportunity to contribute our unique capabilities to the greater good. The council chamber erupted in overlapping translations as dozens of species debated simultaneously. The Arxian chairperson, whose crystalline form had taken on a deep blue hue, raised an appendage for silence. Your proposal is compelling, Commander, but the logistics of safe collaboration remain problematic. A new figure stepped forward, Admiral Vex of the Meridian Fleet, their metallic exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's lights. Perhaps a practical test is in order. My fleet patrols the scarred sectors, where radiation storms have made conventional shipping impossible. If human biology truly offers protection, you can't be serious. The Zephyrian delegate's gaseous form swirled violently, allowing oxygen breathers into active shipping lanes. The risk is minimal compared to the potential benefits, interrupted Dr. Nexa, their scales now a determined orange. We've confirmed the human's containment technology is compatible with our systems, with proper protocols. The debate might have continued indefinitely if not for AOEA's urgent broadcast cutting through all communication channels. Priority alert. Radiation surge detected in the Helios corridor. Civilian transport caught in storm. Conventional shielding failing. Estimated survival time, 17 minutes. Admiral Vex's mechanical joints whirred as they turned to Maya. How quickly can your ship be ready? Maya was already moving. Horizon Dawn can launch in 5 minutes, but we'll need clearance to break quarantine. The council chamber fell silent. The Arxian chairperson's crystal structure pulsed rapidly, their species equivalent of rapid calculation. The lives at risk. Commander Rodriguez, can you guarantee containment during rescue operations? Yes, Maya said firmly, but we need that clearance now. Another precious minute ticked by. Finally, the chairperson's form flashed bright. Granted, may your toxic nature serve life rather than death this day. The Horizon Dawn's launch was a blur of activity. Lieutenant Patel's fingers danced across navigation controls as they accelerated toward the Helios corridor, while Dr. Bennett worked frantically to modify their radiation shields with fresh hemoglobin samples. Transport in visual range, Kai reported. Their shielding is at 12% and falling. Through the viewscreen, they could see the civilian vessel, a Meridian passenger liner carrying over 300 beings. The surrounding space rippled with deadly radiation that would have instantly killed any human vessel without their unique biological shielding. Take us in close, Maya ordered. Dr. Bennett, status. Hemoglobin-enhanced shields holding at 94%. We can extend coverage to the transport, but we'll need to get within 50 meters. Maya nodded grimly. Kai, you heard the doctor. Thread that needle. The Horizon Dawn moved with precision, positioning itself above the stricken transport. The radiation storm raged around them, but inside their oxygen-rich bubble, enhanced by their own biology, they were safe. Extending shields now, Sarah announced. Radiation levels in the transport dropping. They're stabilizing. A cheer went up from the crew as the passenger liner's systems began to recover. But Maya kept her focus. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was humanity's chance to prove they could be more than a toxic threat. Admiral Vex's voice crackled through their comms. "Remarkable work, Horizon Dawn. Perhaps we have been overly cautious in our assessment of your species." Maya allowed herself a small smile as they began escort procedures for the damaged transport. "Admiral, I think this is just the beginning of what humans and the Assembly can accomplish together. Sometimes the most unlikely combinations produce the best results." As they guided the grateful passengers to safety, Maya knew the real work was just beginning. They had cracked open the door to acceptance, but turning humanity's toxic nature into a true asset for the galaxy would take more than one dramatic rescue. But for now, watching the rescued transport dock safely at the station, Maya felt hope. Perhaps being the galaxy's most dangerous species wasn't a curse. It was just the first chapter in humanity's contribution to a greater cosmic community. The success of the Helios Corridor rescue marked a turning point. 3 months later, the Horizon Dawn was no longer treated as a pariah, but as a valuable asset to the Assembly's operations. Yet Commander Rodriguez couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was brewing. Another request for human biological samples, Lieutenant Patel reported, scanning through incoming transmissions. This one's from the Meridian Science Division. Maya frowned. The requests had been increasing exponentially over the past weeks. While most seemed legitimate, research into radiation shielding, medical applications, industrial processes that could benefit from controlled oxygen exposure, the pattern was troubling. Analysis of sample requests over the past month. Show me any unusual clusters or patterns. The A's response was immediate. "Commander, I detected a 47% increase in requests specifically relating to oxidative stress testing. Multiple requests originate from facilities not previously registered for biological research." Before Maya could pursue that thread, Dr. Bennett burst into the bridge, her usual composed demeanor shaken. "Commander, you need to see this." The data she pulled up showed readings from their long-range sensors. "We've been monitoring background radiation levels across Assembly space. There's a pattern emerging, subtle increases in certain sectors, following no known natural phenomenon." "Some kind of weapon test," Maya suggested, studying the data. "Worse," Sarah's voice dropped. "I think someone's trying to weaponize our biology." The implications hit like a physical blow. Humanity's oxygen-based biology, properly weaponized, could be devastating to most species in the Assembly. Their greatest asset could become the galaxy's deadliest weapon. "Kai, get me a secure channel to Admiral Vex. Priority 1. The Admiral's metallic face appeared on screen moments later. "Commander Rodriguez, I assume you've noticed. The radiation patterns aren't natural, are they? Someone's testing delivery systems." "Correct. Our intelligence suggests a splinter faction, multiple species working together. They believe humanity's presence destabilizes the existing power structure. Their solution is to appropriate your biological advantages." Maya's mind raced through implications. They're trying to create an oxygen-based weapon, but they need more than just samples. They'd need a human, Sarah finished grimly. "Their tests won't work without studying the complete biological process. They'll need test subjects." As if confirming their fears, Aoia's alert tone cut through the bridge. "Commander, our sensors detect multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Configuration unknown, but they're on an intercept course." "How many?" 12 vessels, combat configuration. Their weapons are charged." Admiral Vex's expression hardened. "Rodriguez, you must not let them capture your ship. If they succeed in weaponizing human biology." "They won't." Maya's voice was steel. "But we're going to need help." "Already mobilizing. Hold them off for 20 minutes." The connection cut as the first shot streaked past the Horizon Dawn's bow. Maya took her command seat, years of training kicking in. Battle stations. Chi, evasive pattern delta. Dr. Bennett, I need options. What can we do with what they're so afraid of? Sarah was already moving. Our atmospheric containment systems, if we modify them to release controlled bursts, we'd be breaking every safety protocol, Kai warned, hands flying over tactical controls. Better than letting them turn us into a blueprint for mass murder, Maya decided. Do it. The next 18 minutes were chaos. The Horizon Dawn danced through space, using its smaller size to stay ahead of its attackers. When 3 enemy ships got too close, carefully calculated releases of oxygen-rich atmospheres sent their crews into emergency lockdown. 5 ships disabled, Kai reported, but we've used 40% of our atmospheric reserves. We can't keep this up much longer. Maya watched 7 more hostile ships moving to surround them. They were running out of options. Then multiple FTL signatures flashed on their sensors. Admiral Vex's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, weapons already firing. But they weren't alone. Ships from a dozen assembly species moved in formation, their previous fear of human biology overshadowed by the greater threat of its weaponization. The battle was over in minutes. As the last enemy vessels were captured or disabled, Maya received transmissions from countless assembly ships, not of fear or suspicion, but of solidarity. Commander, Admiral Vex's voice carried new respect. The Assembly Council is convening an emergency session. We need to discuss humanity's place in the galaxy and how to prevent this technology from being abused. Maya looked at her crew, humans who had gone from being feared as toxic carriers to valued allies. Tell them we're ready to help. But this time, we all work together. No more secrets, no more isolation. The crisis had been averted, but as the Horizon Dawn took its place in the Allied fleet, Maya knew this was just the beginning. Humanity's unique biology would always make them dangerous, but now they had proven they could be trusted with that power. The galaxy was changing, and humans, it seemed, would be at the heart of that change. The Assembly Station's Grand Council chamber had never seen such a diverse gathering. Representatives from every spacefaring species sat together, their previous atmospheric isolation protocols modified to allow closer cooperation. At the center of it all stood Commander Rodriguez, Dr. Bennett, and Admiral Vex, presenting their unified proposal. The attack on the Horizon Dawn proves we can no longer operate in isolation. Maya addressed the council. Our biological differences aren't just barriers, they're opportunities, but only if we work together. Dr. Bennett brought up a holographic display showing complex molecular structures. We've discovered that the same oxygen processing capabilities that make us dangerous to you also allow us to detect and counter biological weapons. The attack force wasn't just after our biology, they were planning to unleash something far worse. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs as Sarah revealed intercepted data showing plans for a devastating bioweapon. The attackers had intended to use human oxygen processing as a template to create an atmospheric converter that would render entire planets uninhabitable to most assembly species. The crisis has been averted. Admiral Vex's mechanical voice resonated through the chamber. But this threat exposed vulnerabilities in our divided approach to security. Commander Rodriguez and her crew demonstrated that our greatest defense lies in unity, not separation. A Zephyrian delegate, once their strongest critic, floated forward. We feared human biology would bring death to our worlds. Instead, their unique adaptation helped prevent genocide. Perhaps it is time to revise our understanding of what makes a species dangerous or beneficial. Maya stepped forward. We propose the creation of a joint species defense initiative. Humans' oxygen processing capabilities, combined with your advanced containment technology and diverse biological adaptations, could create defense systems far beyond what any single species could develop. The same properties that make human biology lethal to most species, Sarah added, also make us natural filters against biological and chemical weapons. We can literally breathe in toxins that would devastate your populations and convert them into harmless compounds. The Archean chairperson's crystalline form pulsed with intense light, a sign of deep consideration. You propose to transform our greatest fear into our strongest defense, but the risks of closer integration are far less than the risks of remaining divided, Maya finished. The recent attack proved that. We're not asking for unrestricted access, but for controlled cooperation. Let us use what makes us different to protect all of us. Hours of debate followed, but the momentum had shifted. The shared threat had done what years of diplomatic negotiations couldn't. It had united them in purpose. The Assembly's final vote was unprecedented. Unanimous approval for the Joint Species Defense Initiative. Human ships would no longer be quarantined, but would be integrated into Assembly fleets, their unique capabilities balanced by joint safety protocols. As the session concluded, Admiral Vex approached Maya privately. There are still those who fear what humans represent, Commander. This victory may have prevented one crisis, but it could spark others. Maya nodded, watching as various species mingled in the chamber, their previous atmospheric barriers replaced by new, more flexible protection systems. Fear doesn't disappear overnight, Admiral, but today proved it can be overcome. Sometimes the very thing we fear most becomes our greatest ally. Dr. Bennett joined them, her eyes bright with scientific excitement. The biological exchange protocols they've approved. Commander, do you realize what this means? We're going to learn more about xenobiology in the next year than we have in all of human history. And they'll learn that humans can be trusted with our toxic nature, Maya added. It's a fair exchange. As they watched the diverse gathering of species, a new message flashed across their communicators. Reports were coming in from across Assembly space. Other groups, inspired by the failed attack, were stepping forward to propose joint ventures between humans and traditional rivals. The galaxy was changing, barriers breaking down not despite human biology, but because of it. Their poisonous nature had forced innovation in protection and cooperation that might otherwise have taken centuries to develop. Maya smiled as she watched a young Vrel scientist eagerly discussing atmospheric chemistry with Sarah through a newly designed interface. Sometimes the best way to overcome fear is to face it together. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but they were no longer facing them alone. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as outcasts, but as protectors. Their very nature, once feared, had become a shield for all. 1 year after the failed attack, the Horizon Dawn prepared for a historic mission. The ship's hull now bore the markings of both Earth and the Assembly, a visible symbol of the changes that had transformed galactic society. Commander Rodriguez stood in the newly designed bridge, where atmospheric containment fields allowed mixed-species crews to work together safely. Lieutenant Patel shared his station with a Vrel navigator, while Dr. Bennett collaborated with a team of xenobiologists from 6 different species. Final checks complete, Kai reported. Joint atmospheric systems functioning at optimal levels. Maya nodded, studying the mission briefing. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, the first mixed-species colonization of a radiation-heavy world. The planet, designated Haven 1, had been deemed uninhabitable due to its intense radiation fields. But with human biological shielding technology combined with Assembly environmental systems, it could become home to multiple species. Commander, AOIR announced, Assembly Oversight Committee is requesting final confirmation. The main screen activated, showing Admiral Vex and the Archean chairperson. Commander Rodriguez, the Admiral's mechanical voice carried a note of anticipation. Your crew's success will determine the future of interspecies colonization efforts. Are you prepared? Maya looked around at her diverse crew, humans working alongside beings they once feared would die from their very breath. We're ready. The Haven Project will prove that our differences make us stronger together. The descent to Haven 1 was tense. The planet's purple-tinged atmosphere roiled with radiation that would have killed most species instantly. But the Horizon Dawn's hybrid shielding, human hemoglobin-based technology merged with Assembly containment systems, held strong. Radiation levels within acceptable parameters, Sarah reported, her excitement barely contained. The biological shielding is actually adapting to the conditions, getting stronger. Through the viewscreen, they watched as the first settlement pods descended. Each was designed to house different species with varying atmospheric needs, all protected by the same human-derived technology that had once caused such fear. First pod anchored, Kai announced. Environmental systems online and stable. One by one, the pods landed and activated, creating a network of interconnected but atmospherically isolated habitats. Within hours, the first mixed-species colony in a radiation zone began to take shape. Maya stood in the main observation dome, watching colonists from a dozen species begin their new lives. Next to her, Dr. Bennett was practically bouncing with excitement. "Look at those readings," Sarah pointed to her datapad. "The radiation isn't just being blocked. Our enhanced shielding is actually converting it into useful energy. This colony could become entirely self-sufficient." "Commander," a young Zephyrian approached, their gaseous form contained in a new type of environmental suit. "The agricultural pods are showing unprecedented growth rates. Something about the combination of radiation shielding and controlled oxygen exposure is accelerating plant development across all species." Maya smiled. What had started as a fearful discovery of humanity's toxic nature had evolved into something revolutionary. Their biological curse had become the key to unlocking new frontiers. Admiral Vex's hologram appeared in the dome. "The Assembly Council is watching this mission with great interest, Commander. Already, there are requests for similar colonies in dozens of previously uninhabitable systems." "Tell them to be patient, Admiral," Maya replied. "We need to ensure Haven 1 succeeds first. This is just the beginning." As if to emphasize her point, the planet's violent atmosphere threw a massive radiation storm at the colony, but the hybrid shields held firm, protecting all species equally beneath their combined technology. "You know," Sarah mused, watching the storm rage harmlessly above them, "a year ago, most of these species wouldn't even breathe the same air as us. Now look at us, building worlds together." Maya nodded, remembering those first tense days of quarantine. Sometimes the greatest bridges are built by those who seem to have the least in common. The Horizon Dawn continued to orbit Haven 1, its mixed crew a testament to how far they'd come. Humanity had entered the galactic community as feared outsiders, their very biology a threat to all others. They would remain potentially dangerous. Their oxygen-rich biology would always be toxic to most species. But they had proven that with trust, innovation, and cooperation, even the deadliest differences could become strengths. As the colony below grew and thrived, protected by the very elements that once caused such fear, Maya knew they had found their true place in the cosmos, not as conquerors or outcasts, but as guardians, using their unique nature to protect and nurture life in all its diverse forms. The stars stretched out before them, countless worlds waiting to be transformed by their combined potential. The galaxy had feared humanity's toxic nature, only to discover it was exactly what they needed to build a better future. Together.